Okay, we're going to start our August Ordinary Council meeting. Thank you for coming along. Just a reminder to everyone to turn their phone off or put it on silent. Just another reminder that public members to extend courtesy and respect in the chambers, and in doing so, please refrain from talking in the gallery during proceedings, and there's to be no interruptions or use of language that is defamatory or offensive. Would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land, the Wadandi people of the Noongar Nation, paying respects to elders past, present and emerging. Wish to advise that this meeting is being digitally recorded in accordance with Council Policy EMCP2, and there is to be no other visual or audio recording of this meeting by any means without the approval of myself. So we don't have any apologies, we have a full house tonight. Do we have any approved leave of absences?
Madam President, we have one approved leave of absence for the September Ordinary Meeting of Council for Councillor Massey. Very well organised in advance.
Thank you, Councillor Massey. We don't have any other applications coming through? Any other applications from councillors? No. Proceeding on to item 3, which is the announcements from the presiding member. I have provided a list that will go in the minutes, which is basically just a rundown of what I've been doing over the last month. But in addition to that, I would also like to thank the executive staff for preparing the budget for this year. There's been a lot go into it. It's been extremely tight and probably a few sleepless nights trying to get it to balance and to try and bring it right back to what's bearable. So thank you. And I'd also like to thank all my fellow councillors and executive staff for embracing the council leadership program that I'm sort of introducing. And tonight is our first night that we are looking at doing a survey. So after the council meeting, if you'd all like to complete the survey, which is will be put on SurveyMonkey, which you should be getting a link to. And of course, there's another survey which is optional for you for your own self-learning. So thank you, thanks very much for being enthusiastic and trying to, we're all on this journey together, trying to improve and continuously improve. Improve. So thank you very much for that. Is there any other announcements that any councillors may have that we wish to share today? No? All right, well, let's move on to declarations of interest. We have a number of declarations of interest.
Thank you, Madam President. There's a number of interest from Councillor Glover in relation to item 9.2.4, the proposed or recommended adoption of the statutory budget. There's proximity, financial, indirect financial, and a variety of impartiality interests. Councillor Atherton has a financial interest in item 9.1.1. Councillor Massey has an impartiality interest in relation to 9.2.4. Councillor Mills has an impartiality interest in the same item. Councillor Smith has a financial interest in 9.2.4, the adoption of the budget. And Councillor Ringe has a proximity interest in relation to item 9.2.4, adoption of the statutory budget. And elected members will have received communication on this last week from the Director of Corporate and Community in relation to wording of the recommendation as such that it enables elected members to take part in as much of those deliberations without triggering the notification requirements.
Thank you. Thank you. Are there any other conflicts of interest that someone has actually arisen or that wishes to declare? No? Okay. We're moving on to item 5, which is our public question time. We don't have any responses to previous public questions taken on notice. So that brings us to our public question time, item 5.2. Do we have any questions from our gallery tonight? Yes? So just a moment, can you stand and state your name and your address, and then...
Richard Walker, 4974 Donnybrook Road, Boyup. Just a query in relation to the decision process around the concession on rates. Explain that for me, please. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for your question. And I forgot to welcome you, Shire President of the Shire of Donnybrook. Welcome along. I might pass over to the Director of Corporate and Community to answer your question.
Thank you, Madam President, and thank you for your question. Through the budget workshop process with councillors, and certainly we've approached the preparation of the budget knowing that with CPI, particularly in Western Australia, at 7.6% and interest rates on the increase, we were looking to try and limit the impact on ratepayers, whilst also understanding that we as a local government are under a lot of cost pressures ourselves, some of which I've listed in the item itself.
Sorry, Mr. Dolzelli, I believe the question related to the concessions for the properties that straddle Boyup Shire and Donnybrook Shire. I believe Mr. Walker has one of those properties and is wondering how the concession process will work this year, more so than about the budget at large. Is that correct, Mr. Walker?
No, sorry, the CEO, no, I don't have an affected property, and actually I was interested in knowing what the logic was behind applying a broad concession for the current rate increase rather than just applying a rate increase. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Apologies.
Thank you.
Thank you for that clarification. I must admit I did assume it was the case, but I could have been wrongly assuming, so thank you. So just with what I've said, basically we know everybody is under pressure. We as a local government are under pressure. To a degree, there's very little that we can cut back on. Yes, we always look for efficiencies and such like, but at the end of the day, there are things like our insurance's 15% increase, and many other costs that have been increased, as I've mentioned in the background to the document itself or the actual item. Council established a COVID-19 reserve effectively 3 years ago. That reserve had $95,000 within it. We've not had to call on that reserve at all, and effectively the financial hardship situation we find ourselves in today has somewhat been caused and stimulated by the injection of state and federal additional funds and massive projects that they're running, which has then in turn led to shortages in trades, whether it be building, whether it be road construction, which has inherently pushed the prices of all of that up, which has continued to generate an increase to CPI. We've now got the Reserve Bank of Australia saying, I've got to stop this. So their only tool they have really is to increase interest rates. That impacts on mortgage holders. We were looking for a way to give some form of relief in terms of having a 8% rate increase. By the same time, we also understand we've got a long-term financial plan, and we understand the long-term compounding impact of just having a 6.47% rate increase compared to an 8% rate increase. So the concession this year is a one-off concession. What actually is happening is the rates will increase by 8%. We will give back effectively 1.57% of that increase back to the ratepayer. So ratepayers will actually see on their rate notice X amount has been raised minus concession, and the net amount being due. So what it's doing is, in this particular financial year, 22-23, it means that the net impact on ratepayers is reduced, considering the current economic climate. What it does long-term, however, when we look at our long-term financial planning, our actual rate increase for the year is 8%. So when we go and look at next year and next year and next year, if there is no concession, then we're not having the loss compounding of that 1.57% over 5 years, 10 years, 20 years. Does that make sense? Thank you.
Thank you for your question, Mr. Walker, or Councillor Walker. Do we have any other questions from members in the gallery?
I have, but it's quite simply a tribute.
Yeah, no, please. Just need to state your name and address. Thank you.
Probably a bit taller. Sian Blackledge, 595 Sandhills Road. Mine's just a general query within the check run, and it came about, because I like to go through them, and I just wanted to query it. So there were actually 2 different invoices for the same items, as far as it looks like. Outdoor mats ×2, boot scrubber, $204 from Bunnings, and then door mats ×2, boot cleaner and extension cord, $16.80 from the local hardware store. I just wondered why we had such a discrepancy with costing with that.
Yes, thank you for your question. I might just put that on to the,
Thank you, Madam President. Thank you for the question. If you're able to give us...
Well, the EFT for the Bunnings one is 24397.
24397, yes.
Unfortunately, I didn't write it down for the other one, so I'll have to look that up.
Yeah, in order for us to...
Oh, I will. I'll look it online.
Lovely, thank you.
Beautiful. Thank you for your question. Are there any other questions from our gallery? Thank you, Mr. McGuinness. Just for the recording, please state your name and address.
Simon McGuinness, Hardy Place, Donnybrook. Two years ago, I asked this question regarding the Bridge Street development. When will the ratepayers be told of their generous donation of $250,000 worth of land to the Alliance Housing, a government-funded charity in Bunbury? The acre of land in the centre of Donnybrook was gifted to Alliance Housing with no money changing hands, and the CEO's response was, the information will be released when legally able. The project now is nearly complete. Why is this arrangement with Alliance still a secret?
Thank you for your question, Mr. McGuinness. I might just pass that over to the CEO to answer.
Thank you, Madam President. Thank you, Simon, Mr. McGuinness, for the question. I think you asked the question more recently than 2 years ago.
Oh, that's just what I got off the ratepayers.
Yeah, and I think the response provided previously was there was a media release put into the Preston Press, circulated locally, which gave the details of the arrangements with Alliance Housing. I think that was last year sometime. So the information is publicly available if you want to have a look through the back catalogues of the Preston Press.
I might have been away. Okay, in the long-term financial plan, you state that over the first 6 years of the plan, the average expenditure reductions of 5.24% or $299,000 per annum have been applied to the forecasted capital renewal works in order for the Shire to progress towards being more financially sustainable. Could you give the ratepayers a specific amount for this coming financial year instead of the average amount over 6 years?
Thank you for your question. I might pass that on to the... Yeah.
If I can maybe just confer with Mr. Dolzadeli, can we answer that question?
I actually need to go back to the plan to get the exact number, but we do have the number.
Yeah, okay.
If we could take that on notice.
Take that on notice, thanks.
Okay,
Yes.
then. Saving the $299,000.
Excuse me, sorry, Mr. McGuinness, just sorry to butt in there.
You want me to sit down?
Is there any other questions before Mr. McGuinness Is it your last question, Mr. McGuinness?
No, I've got a couple more.
Okay. Is there any other questions? No?
Quite happy to sit. Yeah, you sure?
No? Yes?
Okay.
No? Okay. Yes, please proceed.
Where was I? Saving the $299,000 comes close to matching the principal and interest payments for the football club loan. How will the Shire be more financially sustainable if the reduction in maintaining assets is spent on the football club loan?
Point of order.
Thank you. Well,
Mr McGuinness refers to the loan as the football club loan.
is it the loan of the football club, or are you referring to the actual loan of the
For the $10 million.
for the sporting precinct?
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, it is a Shire loan you're referring to. The Shire loan you're referring to. Is that right? So,
It's just a generic term these days. All right. For the Shire loan. Saving $299,000 comes to close to matching the principal and interest payments for the Shire loan. How will the Shire be more financially sustainable if the reduction in the maintaining assets is spent on the Shire loan? Because they're about the same amount.
yeah, I think we might take that question on notice. Thanks, Mr.
Okay,
McGuinness.
The Shire currently uses RAMs to assess the road network. That was a while ago. Could you explain why the state of the roads has to be kept secret from the ratepayers? It's not. I asked the question and they said no, it won't be released to the ratepayers. Why is it secret?
Thank you for your question. I might pass it on to the Director of Operations.
I wasn't aware that you were an advisor, Mr. McInnes, but one of the things I can tell you...
Sitting next to you.
Oh, okay. Oh, okay. So we are actually undertaking an assessment of our roads later this year using a consultant. We're required to do that every few years, basically to inform our planning and so on.
Yep.
So I'll need to basically confer with the Manager of Works and Services with regards to, I guess, our ability to share that information. It'll basically provide a condition assessment of each of the roads, and but I do need to have a look into it as to how available that is from a public perspective.
The only reason the only reason I came across it because I've been looking at other councils' asset management plans, and their roads are actually listed with how much spent and all that sort of stuff, and ours isn't. So I've been asking just why not, basically.
I'm happy to have a look into that. Thank you.
Right. Last one. At the last meeting, the council passed number 4. Subject to point 7, based on the commercial consultation expressions of interest lodged, instructed the CEO to undertake further due diligence and commercial negotiations with Perkins Builders as to the previously tendered works and present a negotiated draft contract to council for deliberation no later than the end of October. How much will it cost the ratepayers to have the building contractor write their own contract on a $10 million build?
Thank you very much for the question. I might have to pass it on to the CEO. Personally, I don't know.
Thank you, Madam President. I believe that's a rhetorical question.
It is a bit.
Well, no, it's not. It says here...
Well, it's either rhetorical or it's out of line. The contractors are not going to write their own contract.
So what negotiations will you be carrying out with Perkins Builders around the contract on previously tendered works and a negotiated draft contract? That's what it says. It's a negotiated draft contract.
Madam President, you happy
Yes,
to
yes,
yeah,
please.
thank you, Madam
I
President.
don't understand.
The contract documentation will include elements to do with time, cost, quality, scope, insurance, all of those sorts of details and a lot more. So they're the elements that are going to be negotiated between the Shire and Perkins.
And Perkins are doing this for free?
At this stage they are, yes.
Is that all your questions, or you said that was the last one?
Yeah, well, all my questions now relate to the fact that the contractor's writing his actual own contract. So that was the interpretation that I had of the thing that was passed. The auditor had identified a significant risk due to no contractual oversight. How is this being addressed with the idea of this contract coming into line?
No contractual.
That was during the Risk Management Committee meeting. You were on that one?
Yep, okay.
Thank you, Madam President. I think the question's been asked and answered several times now.
Okay. Two companies lodged expressions of interest. Why weren't both consulted with regards to the contract?
Would you like to answer that too?
Thank you, Madam President. The expression of interest process included qualitative and quantitative criteria for the Shire to assess. The assessment of the expressions of interest returned went through a robust assessment process. The results of that were presented to Council, and the Council's resolution was that the assessment favoured Perkins, hence the resolution to proceed with Perkins.
Okay.
And I think you'll find might have been Resolution 7 identified that should negotiations or due diligence processes fail with Perkins, it will go to Smiths.
Thank you, Mr McGuinness. All right, we will move on now. Oh, you have got one more. Okay, please come down. Sorry. Yes, thank you.
Invoices under old road, 24419.
24419. Yeah, thank you.
Charm Blackledge 595 Sandhills Road.
Yeah, thank you.
In the previous meeting, Brad Fowler actually asked how many tender documents had been downloaded, and the answers were you didn't know, but you could find out. Did you ever find out?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, I did.
Can we have, please have an answer to that?
28.
28. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Sorry.
I'll adjust that. It was 35, but 28 unique addresses uploaded the document or downloaded the document.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we're moving on now to, we don't have any presentations, petitions, deputations, no? Okay, we're going to skip item 6, so we're moving on to item 7, which is actually, we're doing the en bloc considerations. So we're doing the en bloc considerations, so I'd like a mover to pass these other ones on block. Councillor Smith, seconded Councillor Massey. All those in favour? Is there anyone against? No, carried 9-0. So that moves us on to the next item, which is 9.1, which Councillor Atherton is leaving the room. He has a financial interest. Now this item 9.1.1 is the formal road dedication at Shorthill Street in Donnybrook. Do we have a mover of this motion? Councillor Newman, seconded Councillor Smith. Councillor Newman, did you wish to speak to the motion as the mover?
Yes, I can speak. I just support the council to support the recommendation. Clearly an oversight from previous long history of an oversight that occurred. Makes common sense to me that that issue be rectified and that we should support the motion. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Smith being the seconder, did you wish to speak? No? Is there any questions before I ask for start the debate? Is there anyone against this motion that wishes to speak? No one wishing to speak against. I'm going to declare that motion carried, 8-0. Just awaiting Councillor Atherton to return into the room. Bloody glasses. Okay, thank you, Councillor Atherton, for returning into the chamber. The next item we have is 9.2.4, the adoption of the statutory budget 22-23 financial year. How do we proceed with this?
Sorry. Thank you, Madam President. So, councillors, the recommendations have been broken up and will be dealt with separately as requested by elected members earlier and because of the conflicts of interest. So I think there's 4 separate decision items. So the first item invokes Councillor Glover's financial interest, so we'll deal with that one and we'll see you back shortly, Councillor Glover.
Thank you, Councillor Glover. We're just waiting till Councillor Glover leaves the room and we're going to deal with recommendation 1. Do I have a mover of this motion? Councillor Smith. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Jones? Councillor Smith, did you wish to speak to this motion? No? Councillor Jones, as a seconder, did you wish to speak to this motion? No, thank you. Are there any questions before I ask for any, before we enter into debate? Okay, I'm going to call for anyone against this recommendation number 1. Councillor Smith, Councillor Mills, I do see your light on and I like your socks.
Thanks. I just have the difficulty with the loan funding. The chances of me changing the result, I understand, is little, but I just like to say, you know, I've heard people around this table say that we're being elected to vote, make a decision. And I agree with that, but I also say it's based on the information, you know, community information, how much we get from the community. And I just have some concerns about this, about the loan and funding the loan. Because the people that I've spoken to have great concerns about funding, paying the loan. And I think there's more people that I've spoken to have that feeling than people who support it. So I have concerns about it, and on that basis, because it's stuck in here, I'm going to have to vote against this. But I understand I could be flogging a dead horse.
Did you wish to put an amendment in or anything based on that?
I really
or
don't see the point.
Okay.
What I really needed to do is give my thoughts, speak against it, but I've been to enough meetings to, I guess, recognise the will of the council, and I suspect that if there's anyone else has the same opinion, well then we'll see that in the vote.
Thank you, Councillor Mills. Is there any questions on that? I was just going to ask a question in regards to that before I call on anyone to vote for the motion. Just recapping one of the meetings we had, I think it might have been May, was in regards to the loan with regards to possibly finding other sources or, you know, looking at other, I don't know if it's any revenue that can actually reduce this loan. Can you please comment on that?
Yeah, thank you, Madam President. You're correct. It was an earlier meeting of council, I believe it was the May meeting, but the resolution included the instruction for the CEO to identify potential other funding sources to reduce the loan principal. I'm going through that process on several parcels of land at the moment. They're not at a stage where I've got anything concrete I can bring back to council, but we're still definitely pursuing that avenue. We're seeking funding from sporting clubs, from the WA Football Commission, from benevolent donors locally in the community, and we're seeking donations or sponsorship or contributions as well from businesses across the district and outside of the district as well.
Thank you. Councillor Miss...
Can I just ask a question? I guess my question is that if we're successful in doing that and didn't require the $3 million, it's still not going to affect the budget. that we pass tonight, is it?
All right, thank you. Are there any other questions before I... No? Yeah, Councillor... Well, I'm coming to who would like to speak for this motion. Councillor Atherton.
Thank you, Madam President. I read with interest this week a report was released into the benefits of community sport in our state, and it came up with a number of $10 billion being a benefit because of community sport. And I guess the obvious thing is the positive outcome of a healthy lifestyle, etc., but also reducing the burden on the health system as a result, and the improvement in mental health. And I'm thinking at a time when we need community to come together to be leading healthy, active lifestyles, if you're looking to invest your money and other people's money, then I think these sort of ventures are exactly what we need. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Atherton. Is there anyone else that would against this motion that would like to speak? Councillor Massey.
Thanks. Just very similar to what Councillor Mills said. I'm not against the project whatsoever, but I just am concerned at the $3 million loan, and I'm delighted to hear that the CEO is exploring so actively ways we can reduce that loan. So on that basis, I would vote against this, but I understand that still means that it's likely the whole thing will go through, but I just wish to register that I would like to reduce that fund if we possibly can, the size of the loan. Thank you.
Did you wish to put an amendment in there just to note May's meeting or something to that effect?
Well, maybe there is a possibility. I confess I hadn't worked it out in advance, but possibly one can put into the number one something subject to at the end, subject to the CEO exploring options to reduce the amount of the loan, or some beautifully finessed version of that. Is that possible?
I think it's somewhat redundant, as there's a council resolution already that gives the instruction to do that. If we adopt item number one subject to something else, we have no budget.
Okay.
Councillor Newman, did you want to speak for the motion, or did you just want to ask a question?
Sorry, I wanted to speak for the motion, and acknowledging the concerns of my fellow councillors. I think it's critically important to remember that the council made a commitment under the agreement to the funding from the state for the residue, the 5.7 million, to contribute 3 million. If we don't budget to contribute that, then we're effectively signalling to the state that we're not prepared to put forward the money that we've already said we were going to put forward in order to get the grant in the first place. So I think it's critical that we signal to the state that our intentions to honour our commitment that ultimately resulted in us being selected to receive the funding are maintained. If we can save money into the future by the CEOs and other staff's actions, well, that's a great result. But I think we have to pass a budget that demonstrates our intent to honour our commitments.
Thank you, Councillor Newman. Is there anyone else against that would like to speak against? No? Okay, well, I'm actually going to put that to the vote. Oh, yeah, who's... sorry, Councillor Smith, would you like to... Your right to reply?
Basically just copy what Councillor Newman has said. We've been around this for a couple of years now. It's not really making a decision on that sort of thing. This is to exactly that, is to show the state government that we are trying to move forward with the project, and there's not really any other option. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Smith. I will put that to the vote for... We are voting on recommendation number one only, just at the moment. So all those in favour of recommendation one, please raise your hands. Against? 2, so it's 6-2. Thank you. I will call in Councillor Glover to proceed with the next recommendation, which is recommendation 2. And it's Councillor Smith's turn to leave the room. Councillor Glover is entering the chamber and Councillor Smith is just leaving. Okay, so now we're dealing with recommendation number 2. Would someone like to move a motion for recommendation number 2? Councillor Atherton? Do we have a seconder? Do we have a seconder? Councillor Newman? Councillor Atherton, would you like to speak to the motion as the mover?
No, I'm certainly not.
Councillor Newman, as the seconder, would you like to speak?
Look, as previously, we've discussed this budget frequently, and I think it's we've discussed whether or not this funding is necessarily required for Egan Park. I think we've put it in the budget with the expectation that we may do the work, we may not. So at this stage, I think it's pertinent that we pass the budget as it stands and make a decision about whether the expenditures occurs during the year.
Thank you, Councillor Newman. Do we have anyone against this motion? Councillor Glover.
I would speak against the motion just simply because there are lights already there, and I find that it's a lot of money that goes to replace something that's actually already there.
Thank you. Is there anyone for this motion that would like to speak? No? Okay. So are there any questions before I put it to the vote? No? Okay, thank you very much. I'm going to put it to the vote. Sorry? Yes, you can. Sorry. Thank you, Councillor Atherton. You're on the ball tonight.
Thank you, Madam President. Yeah, as I mentioned before, once again, this is just another benefit of a community facility where young people, young or old people, can enjoy a healthy lifestyle. And if it means that they can safely ride during the middle of summer in the evenings and enjoy all the facilities, then I think it's a great investment.
Thank you very much, Councillor Atherton. I'm going to put this to the vote. All those in favour? Against? 6-2, carried. Now, we're just calling in Councillor Smith, and I have a proximity interest, so I need to depart. So I will pass this on to Deputy President, Councillor Glover. And don't eat my Twiggy stick.
From outside to inside on the cushions. Should I say something? Okay, so item 3.1, do we have a mover? It's with regard to the bridge on Upper Capel Road. That's Councillor Smith. Do we have a seconder? Oh, Mr. Goober, Councillor Goober. I don't know what to do.
So if you can ask Councillor Smith if he wants to open debate.
Councillor Smith, would you like to open the debate? Councillor Goober, would you like to say anything? Is there anybody who'd like to speak against?
Question? Could I foreshadow an alternate motion? No, just joking.
Okay, if there's nobody speaking against it, then we'll just move it. Carry it.
And I didn't want to close the debate.
Okay, we're now dealing with recommendation 4, which is, there's a couple of pages there, which is the remainder of our motions for this item number. Do I have a mover for this motion in front of us, which is recommendation 4? Councillor Atherton. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Newman. Councillor Atherton, do you wish to speak as a mover?
No, thank you. I reserve my right.
Councillor Newman, did you wish to speak as the seconder?
Yes, just to again reiterate that we've spent some time with this budget process. It's imperative that as a council we give authority to the Shire staff to operate, and without a budget, effectively they're operating in the blind. So, and we need also to be able to finalise our budget so that we can send out rate notices and commence a process of being able to actually generate some revenue to allow the Shire to go about doing its business. So I think it's, again, unfortunately I wasn't present for many of the workshops, but I believe a huge amount of work's got into it, and so I encourage people to support the adoption of this budget.
Thank you, Councillor Newman. Do we have anyone against that wishes to speak?
Can we ask questions?
Oh, yes, certainly. Sorry, yeah, I did skip that. Thank you, Councillor Glover.
Thank you, Madam President. First of all, I'd like to say that, just being a new councillor here and seeing the work that's gone into creating this budget, as with the long-term financial plan, the asset management plan, the council plan that have been developed, that have helped to form this document. My question is, and so thank you very much. I mean, the massive amount of work that's been done in the last 6 months has been amazing, and it's really good to see that it's all in line and bringing it together with this budget. However, my question just to make sure that I feel that everything is okay with it, is just to ask, has the budget been in line with those documents, or have there been any variants that have happened as a result of this as well? What I mean by that is that, have we strayed away from the plans that we had previously made with the long-term financial plan, the council plan, the asset management plan and the workforce plan? Because obviously they are the informing documents that have created this budget.
Thank you for your question. I know it's an evolving, integrated planning and reporting framework, but I will pass the question on to the Director of Corporate Community.
Thank you, Madam President, and thank you, Councillor Glover, for the question. Certainly with the latest iteration of the long-term financial plan, to a degree, the budget or budget preparation and the long-term financial plan were, to a degree, run at the same time. So yes, the budget as it stands is very closely tied, not exact, because we know that we've excluded some capital renewal works that the LTFP said that we needed to do, but very closely aligns with the long-term financial plan, which aligns with those two other plans. So in effect, I'm happy to actually say and state publicly that yes, it is very much in line with those plans you've mentioned.
Mr Dosidelli.
Thank you for your question. Councillor Mills, did you have a question?
I haven't a question, more of a... Can I make a statement?
It's
a positive statement.
Oh, okay, righto. So you're speaking for the motion, is that correct?
Start with, I hate rate increases, and I hate rate increases of this sorts of figures. I understand that, and one of the things we've been at pains to address is that the 8% is revenue increase, not rate increase across the board, and I understand we're going to take steps to notify ratepayers that are affected. What I like to see, I'm happy to see is an effective use of that COVID funding, which will go some way to lessen the burden on our ratepayers. So I was really pleased when you came up with that idea, and I guess we just need to bear in mind that we won't have that next year, and we need to work towards being responsible about our long-term financial plan and our proposed rate increases in coming years. So I just wanted to recognise, I guess, the work that you've put in to lessen the burden a bit. So I suppose that's positive.
Yes, thank you, Councillor Mills. Is there anyone against that wishes to speak? Oh, are there any questions? So you got a question, Councillor Mills, do you?
No, I just fully concur with what Councillor Mills just said. I think the executive staff did a magnificent job on preparing the budget. It's achieved the final result, which is a concession of bringing it to 6.43%. Notices will be provided to ratepayers before they get their rate notice. I think that's an accomplishment that is very well received. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Councillor Jones. No one against it, or anyone else wants to ask a question, or you're quite happy? I'll put it back to the right of reply. Who is Councillor Atherton?
Thank you, Madam President. I concur absolutely with Councillor Mills and his comments, but I wouldn't give up. I would think we might be able to pull another rabbit out of the hat, who knows, and let's keep our fingers crossed. But as mentioned previously, just to thank and congratulate the executive team, in particular Mr Dolzadelli and his team, Belinda, Katie and the others, for their hard work and their excellent product. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Atherton. There's plenty of rabbits at my place you can pull out. I'm going to put this to the vote. All those in favour of recommendation 4? That's against? No one against? No, so it's unanimous, 9-0. Thank you, councillors. We're moving on to the next item, which is 9.3.1, Walga Annual General Meeting and the Convention. Now, I will get a mover and a seconder for this initially, and then I might suspend standing orders so we can work out exactly who's going, who's representing the AGM, okay? So mover, Councillor Newman, seconder, Councillor Jones. Councillor Newman, did you wish to speak?
I encourage all my fellow councillors to attend. I won't be available to attend. So therefore, I'll be in Exmouth, so therefore there's one less person that has to take part in the ballot if you wanted to go down that path.
Thank you, Councillor Newman. Councillor Jones, as a seconder, did you wish to speak? No? Thank you. I'm going to move... Oh, yes, I'm going to move a motion that we suspend local law meeting procedures, clause 10.6, which is the order of debate. Do I have a mover? Councillor Smith, seconder, Councillor Massey. All those in favour, raise your hands. No one against? That's unanimous, 9-0. Okay, we're suspending, we're right to go. So what we need to do first, we might just isolate the two. The first one, point 1, is I need another voting delegate to go to the AGM.
Madam President, if you deal with item 2 first, item 1 becomes easier.
Oh, okay. Well, let's do it. That's a good idea. Thank you, Mr. Rose. We're going to deal with item 2 to get some names, draw some names out. So, Councillor Jones, you've indicated that you would like to go.
Yes, I have. Yep.
Is there anyone else that wishes to go? Councillor Glover? Councillor Mills?
Can I just say, I've always supported, as we've discussed it before, I've always supported councillors attending the conference, except in their last term, the last part of their term. But I think for new councillors and so on, I think it's important if you can go to take the opportunity.
Thank you, Councillor Mills. Is there anyone else? We have Councillor Jones, Councillor Glover and Councillor Mills. Is there anyone else that wishes to go, to attend? No? Okay, so that fills up item 2. So that should make it easy for item 1. Who would like to be a voting delegate? Councillor Glover. Thank you very much, Councillor Glover. So you get to press buttons. Okay, thanks for that. We're going to actually go back into meeting mode. So a mover is Councillor Mills, seconder Councillor Massey. All in favour of going back into the local laws? Is anyone against going back into that? No? No? Okay, carried 9-0. Thank you very much, councillors. We have a mover and a seconder, and we have our delegates and our people that will be attending the convention. Is there anyone against? No? I'm going to put this to the vote. Oh, and before I do that, I will go back to the right of reply, which is no. No, you're right. Thank you, Councillor Newman. So I will put it to the vote. All those in favour? 9-0. There was no one against, was there? No. Thank you. All right. That concludes our meeting that's open to the public. So I'd like to thank you all for coming tonight. Thank you, Councillor Walker, and don't watch out for the ruse.
You just put the knocker on us.
Oh.
They always run out front of their sound and try to shock it.
Yeah, see you later.
I'll be out there.
Yeah. Thank you. See you later. Bye. Okay. Right.
Steve, if you maybe just take it off altogether. Yeah.
First thing we're going to deal. Yes, we do too. Awfully sorry. We have got a mover to go behind closed doors. Councillor Massey, seconded Councillor Mills. All those in favour? 9-0 carried. Okay, so we're behind closed doors now.